All right. Welcome everyone to Adobe Developers Live APAC edition. I hope that you guys are having a fantastic day. And yeah, for folks that are either from India or had celebrated Diwali, that was a couple days ago. So hope that went well. Um, but yeah, we are delighted to have you here today to join us for, I think it's going to be a fantastic next, what is it, I don't know, 6 hours of content that we've got planned for you. So my name is Ron Nagy. I'm an evangelist here at Adobe. And yeah, let me bring up now my buddy Mark here to stage. Hey, man, how's it going?
Hey, Ron. How's things? Hey, everyone.
Yeah, so why don't we kind of jump into some slides here and we'll kind of start this off.
Sounds awesome. And hey to everyone. Welcome from everywhere from New Zealand, Japan, Korea, China, Southeast Asia, Australia, of course, and of course over to India. And likewise, Ron, happy Diwali to everyone for this week. So, Ron, I wanted to share, I think you've seen this picture before, right?
That does look very familiar.
Yeah. So I don't know how many watching if familiar with this particular shot, but does anyone have a guess? Where this location is? Ron, do you have an idea where this might be?
I have no idea, but it has skies for miles. And I know that the last time I was in Australia, it gives me that kind of same feeling. But other than that, I would have no idea.
Yeah, well, I was looking at this image because obviously I stare at it a lot during working with the product, and I thought I feel like you're right. I feel like it could be Australia. So I did the obvious and did a reverse image search, and I went
Yep.
looking. Found that it was from Australia, but didn't really know where in Australia. And I was on a quest then. Like it became something that I was really, focusing on. It was the point where I was scrubbing around on Google Maps trying to work out, okay, there's a river and, does the river bend the right way?
Right, exactly. Matching the
Yeah.
geography.
Yeah. Now fortunately, on Insta, I actually saw someone take a very similar photo. I'm like, whoa, hang on a second. So I stalked the person, found the location, and here is me. If the slides progress, here is me
There we go.
at that location. It actually works out to be almost the halfway point between my house on the Central Coast, just north of Sydney, and the Adobe office. So if anyone's interested, hook up, let me know, and I'll give you the GPS coordinates, and you too can make your own picture and create your own weekend adventures.
Exactly. It makes this demo so much more true to life when it's actually you sitting on that, boulder overlooking the river.
Yes. Well, we keep aspiring to do one-to-one personalization. So
Yeah,
here it is. This is my adventure.
I love it. That is fantastic. All right. So that was our opening segment there. So we have over the next 90 minutes, we're going to talk about high performance architecture. We've got Cedric on video for you guys, who's going to talk about what it means when, hey, suddenly I have a site that is incredibly fast. Technically, what are the kind of things I should consider in order to kind of adapt that methodology and really kind of think things differently. So we're going to have a little mindset shift for the next kind of 35 minutes or so. Then Mark's going to come up, talk about new innovations that we have around Adobe Experience Manager. I'm going to jump back in and talk a little bit about extensibility. And then Mark's going to finish off that extensibility section. And then we're both going to chat about generative AI because everything's generative AI, including that background that you're looking at right now, was created in Adobe Firefly. Fantastically easy product to use. But anyways, I digress. Let's get started here with Cedric.
In the next 25 minutes, I'm going to go through quite a bit of things. And I know it might be going, I might feel like I'm rushing through quite a bit of things, and I think that's okay. So again, there's a lot of change that is coming to Adobe AEM, or particularly AEM sites. And I want to make sure you folks understand how all the pieces fit together. I know we've been over the last, I don't know, year or so, we've been, doing various experiments, and I think these experiments all come together. So I want to explain how all these pieces fit. Okay. So the first part of that was actually the finalization of step one. Step one was trying to figure out how can we reinvent or reimagine parts of AEM sites. And the general availability we've announced on October 10. So again, some of you folks might have hopefully caught that announcement. If not, don't worry about it. I'll get through this here today. Okay. So on October 10th, we made generally available the Edge delivery services, or what we call Edge delivery services. And so let me explain a little bit, obviously, what that is and how does it fit into the rest of it and so on. So what you see here is our own page on adobe.com, which we updated on October 10th. And if you haven't had a chance yet, there's a really good video actually on that page. Don't go look at it right now. Like, just keep it on your bookmarks. Look at it later. Just keep focus here. Listen to me as we go through this here. So it finalizes, as I mentioned just briefly a moment ago, our step one in a journey of reimagining how AEM sites works. So the first section of that was really to figure out how could we allow customers to build sites that are always fast. And I'll get into a little more details on why we feel like that's important, right? But just bear with us here for a minute, okay? Our goal is we want all of our customers' websites, everybody's using Adobe Experience Manager, to have a website that is fast, right? So for that, we really looked into how could we possibly do that. I think this is a few years back, right, where we had this conversation about how we could do this. And our aim was, if we can manage to get 100 URLs or 100 domains, right, live in production on that technology that can prove that this website is always fast, we're going to call it GA. Well, guess what? We did hit that milestone. We were able to get 200 sites live. Hence, we've announced on October, well, the general availability was on October 10th, okay? Which obviously includes actually our own site, where our own product pages on adobe.com was obviously one among them, right? And so the other thing that we wanted to do is, given that this is such a kind of a big change, if you think of that way, I've been with this product for a little bit, and certainly this is the biggest change to AEM sites since 2007. So yeah, that's quite a bit. In 2007, for those who were with us at that time, that was when we introduced Sling as the render engine for AEM. Okay. So yes, that's a big change. So we wanted to make sure everyone here on this call, but just generally in the whole ecosystem of folks that are working with AEM, will get a chance to learn how this works. So it was important for us, and so this new domain that we put live, that we went live with on October 10th, is called .aem.live. Again, put that onto your bookmarks to check out later, okay? And the key reason for that site is really for you folks, all of you, to go and learn of how we envision sites are being built with AEM sites in the future. Now, I understand there's a big change coming for all of us here, but we feel strongly about that this change is important, and I'm going to talk about this now. So whatever it's, Lighthouse score, I think everybody knows what the Lighthouse score is, right? And understands the kind of measuring or having a lab measurement for like how well the site does when it comes to performance, to stability, to interactivity, like how quickly, if you click on a button or if you do an interaction, how quickly does the website react to you clicking on that button or switching that tab or whatever it is, right? So really understanding how does the performance works. Now, and I'll put the 100 there. Let's go 100 is the highest you can get. Now, what is obviously important is what the real users are doing. Now, again, the difference between real users and lab, and I think that we're going to talk a lot about that as we're measuring things, is that we feel strongly that a liner score of 100 or something nearby, you see the screenshot has 99. I did that on purpose there, is that lab values vary, right? Lab values are not always the same. It's hard to really get consistent and stable lab values. So that's why, 100 is a yardstick, okay? And, mileage may vary, but what it causes, and I think that's the important part, we're not so interested in so much in the LiDAR score of 100. We're interested in what the side effects, or in this case, the first order effects are of the LiDAR score of 100, which is obviously that you have a website that is fast for almost everyone. Now, you can't make a website that's fast for everyone, but you can make a website that's fast for almost everyone. Okay, so again, it's just a little bit. Now, again, there's more to a website than just fast. We actually packed in quite a bit of other capabilities that we felt like are relevant to make a very impactful website, or for you folks to have the maximum amount of, engagement that is possible, with technical reasons. Now, there's always your content, there's your graphics, your design, your experiences, right? There's a lot to it for a good site. From our point of view, we're trying to contribute the things that we can, right? So I felt maybe a good way to kind of get through what Edge Delivery Services is, that comes to AEM, is do a little quiz. Okay, how about that? So what is it? Is it a CDN? What do you think? Is Edge Delivery Services a CDN? No. Okay, I know I put these questions out here a little bit on purpose because I think I'm getting these questions quite a bit from you folks, which I think is great. These are good questions, so don't feel bad if you felt it was yes. Okay, so no. What it is, it's basically, and I call it here, a wingman for your CDN or a sidekick for your CDN, right? You already have a CDN and you shall keep that because, again, it has a very important, vital role when it comes to performance. But what we're bringing here is the rendering and the infrastructure to query content and telemetry and control plane to the edge. So we basically pairing your CDN with our infrastructure here with Edge Delivery Services that are part of AEM sites. So they're side by side. Again, I think wingman is a good analogy, right? They're basically notching each other and building each other up in order to fulfill a really good cause here. Okay, so if you think of the graph down there, kind of quickly explaining, again, Edge Delivery Services at the bottom, which is our services that we're providing, your existing infrastructure that you already have today, you might have contracted that with other folks. Of course, you don't provide it yourself, but you have some contracts with vendors that do that for you, right? And so it really integrates deeply into the infrastructure that you have. It doesn't replace your CDN. I guess very important. Now, having said that, if you do not have a CDN today, and I think I just looked up the HTTP archive numbers, I think there's still like 40% of websites in the world that don't have a CDN. It's actually gotten a lot better in the last few years. But again, if you're among them that still don't have a CDN, that's totally fine. We can provide one for you. Okay. So, but again, it's more. So, second question, you ready? Does it magically make sites fast? Okay. Well, the answer is kind of. Okay. You're like, what do you mean kind of? Well, Edge Delivery Services is a productized or a way of building high-performance websites. So what we went on over the last few years, we went first, very manually trying to build sites that are just really fast. And really fast, we means have a good large discountable pane, have a good cumulative layout shift. You see some of the metrics is down here that are part of ROM measurement, and some are also measured in a LiDAR score. Others are just available. The interaction to next pane, for example, is only available in ROM. You cannot have that as part of your LiDAR score, because that's something that you track as people actually interacting with the site. So you can only have like real user metrics for that. But having said that, we will look at across the board the key milestones and metrics that are being measured in web performance. And we're trying to implement both the server side and the client side part of that equation. Because in order to achieve sites that are fast, as in like 95% of the visitors get an LCP below 2.5 seconds, you really need to have both. And so, okay, what Edge Delivery Services is, it's a productized implementation, a productized path or guardrails, and different terms we can use, that really gets you to that, right? And the chart below here just explained it a little bit. It's from a company called RunVision. Again, this is a provider that gives you insights about how fast your site is. But this is one particular customer that we've implemented. And you see here the graph, it's always like a trailing 28 days. Every bar is 28 days trailing, where you see the site before, right? Where there's some red bars there where, a certain percentage of the visitors did not meet the threshold of what's supposed to be good, according to the definition of the core web vitals. And you basically see when we switched over on when it actually then became green and good, okay? So we're really aiming for Edge Delivery Services to be a tool that everyone can use to build their site and then get these results. And the only way to really do that at scale is to productize that. And the joke that I sometimes make, over the years, there was a lot of books being written about web performance, and a lot of smart people have said how it's supposed to be done. But if you look in real world how fast websites are, clearly those books didn't really hit the mark. Now, no doubt those books are great. But the problem is there's a difference between reading a book and implementing it. And I think we see this challenge out there. So that's why we felt strongly that we need to productize, I guess, the parts that are in the book. So you don't have to read the books and implement it that way. Now, it's still good to tell you to read those books, okay? Next question. Did you write your own JavaScript framework? I love that one. I get that one actually quite a bit. Did you write your own JavaScript framework? So, of course, when it comes to web performance, you can't not talk about JavaScript frameworks, just because, again, quite a bit of those frameworks were originally written for to making the web faster. Like single-page app frameworks is certainly one category of those, that came up. And people felt like, well, we need to rewrite everything in JavaScript and run client-side in order to make websites fast, right? So single-page app, the single-page app kind of concept, right? Which obviously certainly has its merit, but again, there's other challenges that can get to it. But anyway, the question comes up a lot. So the answer is, well, I know, I'll let you read that. I think there's quite a bit of JavaScript frameworks out there. We don't feel like we should add another one. So let's put it that way. And instead, we're trying to find a way, how can we bring, I guess, the best of what the web has to offer today. With that, I'm referring to the web platform, right? So there's web platform is what is implemented in the browser, just out of the box, right? Without having to add a lot of extra JavaScript. And really taking the best out of what folks have built in frameworks and combining that, I think, is where we think the future is going for the web. But first and foremost, focusing on the capabilities that are basically in the web platform already. So if you think of what is our JavaScript framework of choice, it's called Web Platform. Okay, well, it's already in the browser, it's already installed, and it already works. Okay. So last question, before we're going to get into the next section of my presentation. So editing is in Word, is it? Where it is. So I know we talked quite a bit about Word editing, and folks have probably caught us talking about that quite a bit. And so when you just, I want to make it clear. So the answer is no. Okay. And let me explain that. When we started to build edge delivery services, and we kind of thought, okay, how does content management going to evolve, right? One of the things that we felt strongly about is that we want to create a delivery infrastructure that is open for where the content is actually managed. And I think it's not a secret that a lot of original content that somehow ends up on the web today is actually not really managed in a CMS. Well, it's some point gets into the CMS, of course, because it has to get there to be delivered. But folks are not really working in the CMS to actually create the content in the first place, because there's an iterative process. Again, there's many reasons of why that is the case. And so that's why we thought, you know what, it would really be cool if our next generation of our products, right, which is basically what we're talking about here, is are really open for other content sources, other places where content is managed. And again, you know, like we're now a few years in, and a lot of folks are managing the content already in the cloud, and I'll talk this in a little bit more. But so we felt like, now again, to be precise, edge delivery services itself is not limited, or to that matter, for like editing in either Word or Google Docs. But you will kind of ask it, but hey, wait. If I go to aem.live and I just did this, or whatever, I did this a week ago, you name it. The example that you have on that site walks me through, and the third thing that I have to do in this tutorial is open Google Drive. Correct. I think the choice of us really going with what we refer to as document-based editing here is really, we want to make it as easy as possible for as many people as possible to learn how edge delivery services work, right? Our productized approach to building fast websites. So we wanted to come up with a way to really do this so that literally everyone can just try it out, right? So they can get familiar with it, learn about it, and then ultimately contribute to projects that are using Adobe Experience Manager. And the other thing, again, that's one aspect of it, but the other aspect for sure is, again, the ability for those folks who feel like, hey, this is actually a good choice. Again, it's totally up to everybody's choice, whatever they feel like this is Google Docs or SharePoint is a good choice. Or, and I think you see this in the chart below, let me talk a little bit about that, is we refer to this now as content sources. So AEM author, JCR, right, is one of possible content sources for edge delivery. So is SharePoint, so is Google Drive, so is GitHub, and so is an open API where you can integrate any other content sources. So we really want to be open to where the content's actually coming from. Now, again, we certainly want to make sure there's a really good combo between AEM author and edge delivery services, which I'll talk about in a bit. All right, next. The folks are kind of asking me obviously a lot, or asking us a lot, like, how does it, okay, great, productizing fast websites, great, but tell me how does it work? Like, get a little more, like, you know, details of, sure, try it out. And I think first and foremost, I will tell you what I'm going to do in the next 3 slides is kind of give you the mind map of how do we got to the way edge delivery services works today. Now, I'm not going to explain to you exactly how edge delivery services works today. You can actually try it out yourself. And we're not trying to hide it either. So it's pretty straightforward to follow up. Once you actually try it out yourself, I think you're going to kind of see through and how it works, okay? But I want to give you the, how do we got to this? Because I think that's where people look at what we did with edge delivery services, or, you know, if you got a chance to do so, you try it out. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, they should get it. Like, how do you got there? Like, what? I don't get it. First, some people say it's wrong. Okay, fair enough. Others like, you guys are crazy, whatever. There's all kinds of things being said about this. It's just, okay, I'll take all that. But I want to give you the kind of mind map how we got there, okay? Because we jumped a few jumps. And so sometimes it's kind of hard to follow all those jumps so quickly, just because we're in that kind of, way of thinking, right? All right, get started. It's 2023. Well, it's actually soon 2024, but let's stick with that. We're this year, okay, 2023. I think one of the key things is HTTP 2 is default, or you can make it default for your implementation. There's no problems today anymore with using HTTP 2. So I'm like, oh, what does that make difference? Well, there's a lot of things in the front-end world that were built because of limitations in HTTP 1.1. I know some of you folks might be familiar with that, others not so much. I'm not going into all details, but stick with that. Today, a lot of today's front-end technologies, front-end approaches were designed around limitations of HTTP 1.1. If you remove HTTP 1.1 out of your equation and kind of think, well, let's see what HTTP 2 can give us, and how would we solve those problems, you're gonna get two different results. First one of those is waterfall loading, which is an absolute no-no in HTTP 1.1, is just fine with HTTP 2. Number two, well, this whole thing about bundling, like having a bundler, having a compiler, having a compressor, having whatever name you say. Those things were all invented, again, around some of those limitations in trying to achieve better performance. Well, we might not need them anymore. And this idea of with LCP and us focusing on the browser as the viewport of the browser as something that really is important for the user to interact with versus, the difference between focusing on the website as a whole, like the web page as a whole document, versus looking at this as a viewport of the browser where there's certain interactivity happening and focusing on what's actually happening in that viewport versus focusing on the document, right? Is this whole critical path first concept, which I think, again, gives us a whole kind of new way of thinking about how the front end could work. So you will see quite a bit of thinking that went into when we productized edge delivery services. Number two, and I referred to that earlier, the web platform can do a lot more, and I'm quite sure since you last checked. Now, no offense, there's new Chrome and Safari versions and Firefox versions and whatnot coming out regularly. And every single month, basically, there's new capabilities that are coming to the web platform. And it's really interesting, right? And I think a lot of times this gets forgotten because we're kind of abstracting ourselves away from that with frameworks that we're using. And maybe you don't need that framework after all. Now, that framework, then there's many, right? Now, again, some I would consider at this point obsolete, that you don't need them anymore just because the web platform can do it. And an argument might be it can do it better, right? Other frameworks are just totally fine, right? So this is not just a whole toss here at all frameworks. There's just some frameworks that, particularly the older ones, the older a framework is, the more likely it is that you don't need it anymore, right? And again, that's all things that have to be downloaded, all things that have to be executed and parsed and know what. So the other thing is that I think it is important to understand, a lot of folks, when you say, well, APIs and stuff like that, everybody thinks JSON instantly. Oh, JSON, right? We really thought about HTML, HTML, the markup language, also as kind of an API. And so I think what you will see here when you look a little closer at edge delivery services and the way we do things, you really see as how we think of HTML as an API and as a contract between different parts of the architecture. And I think that's also one of the things a lot of folks kind of think of HTML as street HTML, just whatever the browser spits out and renders. But if you think of HTML as an API. Okay. More, your favorite CDN can do push invalidation. Now, why is that important? Why does it matter? Well, the way we've been organizing the cache, or what we are caching, has really been resource-based, right? Oh, there's like the resources, and they have to be cached, and these kind of resources you cache that long, these kind of resources like you cache this long, and these resources cannot cache at all, and whatever, right? So it's all about caching by resource type, okay? So we've trying to change that a little bit. I think the best way of trying to phrase that here inside of this part of this discussion is organizing the cache by who is changing what. I know it sounds a little arbitrary here, and I'll leave it at this for now, but just rethinking of how you manage the cache in CDN. I mean, push invalidation obviously helps us to from the sidekick or the wingman, right, of the CDN, to really kind of let the CDN know how long things can be kept and when it has to be removed. So there's a really tight coupling. Again, the wingman is very tight coupled between the edge delivery services and your CDN as it interacts with each other. So, which obviously gives us a chance to cache in a much higher cache efficiency than what you traditionally can. So a typical edge delivery services site has a 99.99 cache rate ratio. Actually, if it doesn't, it creates an alert on our infrastructure. So we have our NOC folks that are monitoring infrastructure. If actually some of our customer sites have not a 99.99 cache hit ratio, it actually is an alert. So that's a problem. That's a bug. Something must be wrong in the software because we can't cache that 99.9. Okay. So I think it's just important to kind of understand as a concept of kind of really achieving that performance, and achieving that performance globally is in order to do that. All right. Your content's already in the cloud. We talked about Word and Excel and you name it. I mean, bring your tools. We'll support those as an open API. We want to support the content where it is today, and chances are the content's already in the cloud. So support. Okay, last one. Martech. Oh, friends of Martech. Okay. Well, we got plenty of that here at Adobe too, right? So not trying to put anybody under the bus here. But what is important when it comes to Martech or JavaScript that you add to your site is, as a developer, you are thinking of your performance budget when you build your site, right? But then you add the tag manager, and then you allow other folks just to add things to that, unknowingly what the budget is, not being aware of the consequences of adding that JavaScript to your Google Tag Manager container or Adobe Tag Manager or whatever tag manager you want. They're all the same. I mean, it comes to performance and not really caring about it. That's a problem. So one of the things that edge delivery services brings you, and again, we'll talk about a lot more in the future because we're heavily still working on that, is truly understanding where does TBT blocking time, your browser's main thread blocking time, is coming from, and really actively help you to manage that blocking time. And that includes for us third party. So we're not just saying, well, edge delivery service is fast, and as soon as you add any tag manager, warranty is void. We're not doing that. I know some other folks do that, so I'm not gonna toss others under the bus here, but whatever. But we're really keen about making sure that we're end-to-end controlling the performance, and therefore we also need to understand how third-party marketing tools are impacting your thing. Now, this is just an example chart of a backend tool that we have that tracks all our customers. So we track TBT across all the sites that are running on edge delivery services. So to detect which one of those are the key kind of contributors to that. So there's two things that are happening when we discover. Number one, we're working with these we contact these vendors and talk about how they can improve their solution. Number two, we're going to give you clear instructions of what to do to avoid the TPT on those tags. Okay? So again, you're going to see us rolling out quite a bit of that throughout next year. But this is certainly a key part of the value that we want to provide here, on top of providing a fast site, but also really helping you to manage that marketing, that impact of that. Now, we're not saying you shouldn't use those tools. I think these are all great. They all have value, but you need to use them in a way that they don't impact performance. Okay. All right. What's in it for me? Okay. What's in it for you guys? Okay. Well, there's a few things, of course. I think hopefully everybody's going to start learning how to build fast websites. I think that would be amazing, isn't it? All right. I think that's a nice side effect. We're all going to learn how to build fast websites. I think that's great. And we'll hopefully that helps your career too. It makes you happy at work, and it's a great satisfaction to build a site that is fast. I'm telling you. I mean, we've gotten onto this now. We have over 100 sites, but we're celebrating everyone. We're celebrating every site that we can get live that is fast, and I think you should celebrate that too. I think it's amazing. So what happens when you go live with a site that is fast? So the first thing that happens, again, the numbers will vary. Okay, of course, depending how much traffic you have and all things. There's so much things that vary. But one thing that I can guarantee you here, the numbers are all going to look better. Okay, I don't know how I can tell you how much. I can't tell you that, but they will look better. You won't get negative effects unless you make some mistakes. I can talk about this in a bit. There's still mistakes you can do. Performance alone doesn't get you there, right? So I think day zero, the first thing that happens is instantly, of course, you have people spending more time on your site. They spend more time on pages because stuff is fast loaded. They're budgeting their brain of how much they just spend more time on it. The other thing is bounce rate. People come to your site and go away right away. Don't do any second click. Goes down right away because again, the site is loads. Whatever, for 75% of the visitors below a second, they're just going to spend more time on your site, right? The other thing that's happening is over time, again, you're going to see this in your chart. People are going to do more page views, right? They're just going to spend more time on that. Same thing. The interesting part is Google, right? If you go to the what used to be the webmaster tools, and now I think it's called Search Console. If you go to Search Console, they show you how your site is doing, right? If your URLs are fast or slow, basically, right? I think it's so fascinating to see once you do switch, right? You see here the graph where most of the things are red, and then yeah, great. No, I'm running out of battery. Great. You see how it switches from like the URLs being red to become green, right? And so fascinating to see how, or just it takes a little bit of time. It takes like 10 to 20 days for Google to reevaluate all URLs. This is a really small site here, which is like 200 URLs, but it doesn't matter if you have 1,000, 10,000, it doesn't matter, right? It's just will over that period of time as there's more run, like the data. Maybe everybody's understanding. Okay, so how does Google know whenever your website is fast, and how does that improve your ranking, right? The data is taken out of Chrome User Experience Report, right? So Google tracks run data from people visiting the site on Google Chrome browsers, mobile and desktop. That data is getting taken is what you see here is the report of how it looks like, the internal tracking your URLs and how fast they are, and that will then impact ranking, right? So it's not how quickly the Google spider can spider your site or anything. That's all BS. Whoever told you that? It's really the crux data that is relevant. Okay, so that's why this chart in Search Console is super important for you to measure to see if you manage that. But again, consistently across all sites with edge delivery services, whatever they were before, they're green at the end. Okay. The other thing, I'm just talking about ranking. So that's a little bit of a trickier game, right? So improving ranking or getting more, but ultimately you want to have more organic visits, like people coming to your site without you having to spend money for them to get to your site, right? Like buying advertising. So organic traffic goes up when your website goes fast. It gets faster. Why? So again, that's Google specific, but lots of traffic, organic traffic, most likely is from Google. So let's talk about that. is really this ability for you to rank better. And so what Google does, if there's competitive keywords, it takes a list of all the possible URLs that would rank for that keyword. And then the one with the best content comes first. Now, if there's 2 or 3 websites that have, similar good content, the performance wins. Performance is the last thing that happens, right? So you have to have good content first. Just having a fast website with bad content doesn't get you anywhere. You have to have good content. But when you have good content, the last bit is like when you have competitive, you switch it up. So you see that quite a bit. We had some good successes there where folks were able to jump, and I think the little screenshot there shows of the ranking jumps that were able to be achieved through that. All right, more repeated visits. People come back because your website was fast. All right, I know actually I used up my time here, and this is something you want to make a screenshot of right now, because that is what is available today. Okay, what is available as what we call early adapters, which reach out to us. We can get you in there. We can get you this functionality, get going. All right, and then what we call discovery projects, which are projects that we're working on together with customers. So one thing that I want to mention here, across all the edge delivery services project that we've done, is we work very closely with customers because that is important for us. So the Slack channel that you saw there, just on one of the slides, is important. Like, you're going to see us as a vendor being much closer involved in projects that you folks are doing, and we would love you folks to invite us into your projects to really understand how it's being used and how can we make AEM better, right? I think one of the things that, particularly with this focus on performance and engagement, I haven't even talked about that, experimentation and personalization, which is also part of that. So bringing all these things in, I think it's important for us to be closely involved, and we want to be closely involved because, again, that helps us to really build our, I guess, reimagined AEM in a way that really is something that you folks want to use and you folks are successful with. Okay, so I won't go into all details. Again, if you have any questions, you find me anywhere you find me. I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter.
All right.
But yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Cedric. That was fantastic. I'm glad that your phone.
Cedric's phone lasted, which is a great thing. So, hey, everyone again. And remember, this is a live session. So if you've got questions or things you want to interact with us, feel free to drop into the chat that you can see, which should be on your side here. So if you just joined in recently, we just talked through high performance architecture with Cedric Kuchler, who is the product manager for AM Sites. I'm now going to deep dive into some of the new innovation and share some demonstrations with you around what you should be thinking about with the Adobe Experience Manager. So let's get straight into that with the new innovation. And as Cedric mentioned, we've introduced something called Edge Delivery Services. And the key thing to note is the word services. You'll see a number of new services come out from Adobe over time. We've announced and talked about what we're doing with AI, and we'll share a little bit about that later on, as well as something called Content Insights. But right now, we're really excited about the announcement of Edge Delivery Services. And to throw a good architecture diagram at you, because this is a developer event and we love a good architecture slide, there is so much going on with AM that, if you've been working on projects and you're thinking, hey, I know AM, well, the good news is everything that you know has not gone away. The even better news is we've added a whole bunch of extra things to your toolkit to allow you to start, delivering with performance in mind and thinking about content workflows, etc. So, author, publish, dispatcher, all of that continues as is. But we want you to be thinking about Edge Delivery Services and how, from a delivery perspective, how it can allow you to really build a new project and to meet those requirements. And later on today, we've got to actually walk through where you can actually start doing hands-on work and get right into the weeds. But this is a very JavaScript friendly front end, building projects in, days and weeks, not months. And so that's one of the key new areas. But we've also added extra things such as document-based authoring, the new universal editor, things like the real using metric service to actually find out, what people's scores are like. And then, new interaction capabilities via the collaboration channel and having bots actually tell you, how things are performing, what's your code working like, etc. So to touch on a few of those things, I want to, get into what it means from authoring. As Cedric mentioned before, the whole idea here is that Edge Delivery Services delivers the content and actually gives you a great developer experience as well. But when we think about authors and typically as a developer, you're thinking about, your partners as far as how are they producing content. AM has a lot of flexibility now. And to be clear, while we're introducing new ways, we're not mandating one versus the other. For instance, WYSIWYG will continue, and we're investing in that area. Headless, of course, it has a lot of use cases, especially when I'm doing, cross-platform or, app content, etc. But then when you document-based authoring, the whole idea is that we can use the right piece of authoring capability depending on the project needs, and even mix and match depending on where the content is and how I need to interact. So I want to show you a few examples of that. And let's roll the first demonstration to walk through that. And of course, ask me questions live. Now, in this case, the first example I want to show you is where I've actually built an application. This is a fictitious post-login environment where I can see my account balance and things like that. But I also have some content that I want to maintain here. Now, this application happens to be written in React, but it could be written in some other framework or even some new emerging framework. And rather than forcing you to pick the framework that works the best way with Adobe Experience Manager, we now have something new called the Universal Editor that is very agnostic to if it's client-side or server-side, what framework you're using, etc. But I can load that in just by putting the URL into the toolbar here and hopping into edit mode. And the areas that are actually editable will be highlighted now, as you can see from the hierarchy on the right-hand side here. So to make a change, a content author can take this content that was integrated with the app via a headless call, very simple, standard GraphQL-based call here, but then to make a change to the content, you can just simply hop in here and correct this to say, flying around in Melbourne. And as soon as I escape out of this field, at the top, you can see the bars moving across. It's actually persisting that change back. So we've got the beautiful nature of being able to serve headless content, consume that, but allowing you to have the great authoring capability. And as I make the changes, persist back to the source, which in this case is a content fragment. So this is a tool we're iteratively working on and adding new capability, adding things like a picker support for media and so on. So expect more from this. But, I can go and have a look at this particular content fragment just by clicking on edit. And you'll see that change has been put in place here, saved 28 seconds ago. And so we have that round trip nature of the content fragment going to the editor, allowing the best of both worlds for you as a developer, but also for the content author team. Now, speaking of working with content fragments, there's been a lot of investment into the way you manage content when you've got to scale and work with lots of different content fragments. Now, of course, you could have a nice folder hierarchy and have everything stored in the right folders, etc. But it's quite common for many brands to have hundreds, if not thousands, or tens of thousands of more of content fragments, and having to go through folder structures can be quite cumbersome at times. So the idea here is that I've got a list of all of my fragments, but then I can start using the search on the left-hand side to filter down to find what I'm after, or in fact use a filtered search that I've got here, a save search, to say, just show me all my offers that are of English variation. And you can see the languages, the tags, all of that has been applied here, and I can start to leverage, and I can hop straight into that particular content fragment and start to see that view in a new, refreshed way. Now, we have all the standard things around content fragments, so things like variations, the tagging, the metadata, all in one view. I can see what the various fields are, etc. So the whole idea is that it's never been easier for you to produce structured content and serve it up in the right way for those headless use cases where you're going omnichannel, as well as supporting the web-based workflow like I showed you in the first part. Now, of course, quite often when we're talking to content authors, we also hear that they have content that looks something like this. Maybe it's a brief for a new page and it's started in Microsoft Word or Google Docs, and they want to actually allow you to publish this content really fast. Now, rather than taking this and routing to someone in the organization who knows Adobe Experience Manager and can copy, paste, or import this content, the whole idea here is we're making it easier by giving people with the right permissions the ability to add this sidekick that you just saw me load up and just simply click on preview to go and load up the page and start to get a view for how this content works. We call this document-based authoring because I'm authoring my content based on this document, but it allows me to have a lot of flexibility in the way I can author content. I still get all the advantages of having my assets view where I can go and see my different assets show up, and that's just loading here, but also a library of all of my different blocks that I can actually put onto the page. So things like how columns work or how a banner should look up, and I can just simply go and paste that onto the page and start working on it. We're going to cover more of this later on, but this is how we start to see Experience Manager working across the organization based on the use case of a particular project. If you need WYSIWYG, it's there. If you need headless, it's there. If you've got content already in a document, potentially persist that and work with that as well. That's the new Experience Manager as far as authoring. So great innovation there. And the good news is that everything in that demonstration is available ready for production use today. So if you're looking at this thinking, hey, maybe I've seen it before, but I wasn't really sure, feel free to talk to your account team and make sure you can get access to this technology. Now, leaning on that a little bit further, something we're working on that's worth being aware of is also around content intelligence or insights. And while we're used to seeing analytics around a page that's being built, look at the screen here, and this is what you'll see coming soon from Adobe, the ability to actually get metadata and insights based on the content, the layout, the way that the content's been assembled. On the right-hand side, the assets that are performing, the color palette, the keywords, but even down into each individual item. So really rich metadata around that hero shot, the bike rider that's coming down the mountain, and the emotion of it. It's excited that there's one person in it. Are they making eye contact or not? And really starting to think about even the emojis that you'd use if you want to post this, in a social way. So all of this metadata from a developer perspective allows you to make some important calls around dynamic behavior. How do I treat an image differently if the subject is on the left versus the right? Do I think about how the text is displayed? There's lots of opportunity for that. And giving the feedback also to content production to say, all right, which color palettes work best, which images with the most clicks. And if I show you another example here, even the ratio between text and images. So look out for this, fairly soon from Adobe, but we're excited that we're going to give you those insights coming back as well. So that's a quick look at some of the innovation just on the sites product family, going from that behavior and that performance, and you'll be able to see this live later on today as we do the walkthrough. But new things such as document-based authoring, definitely go and check it out. At first glance, like me, you might be thinking, well, this feels really different, but embrace it and you'll get to learn to love it, how fast you can actually produce content and push it out there. But we're still, delivering on, the traditional WYSIWYG authoring and headless and bringing new insights there. All right, let's switch over and talk about accessibility or extensibility, and let's bring Ron on to cover this section.
All right, thanks, Mark. So I'm going to take just a few minutes here and talk a little bit about extensibility. I don't know if you have heard of App Builder before. I'm hoping that you've heard of App Builder. It's been around for a couple of years now, and it is a complete framework for you to extend and integrate Adobe Experience Cloud products. It is low code, code friendly. It's certainly not like if you are familiar with Workfront Fusion, which is essentially no code at all. This is something where you can build. We recommend VS Code and create actions. So it is a serverless framework that allows you to run kind of glue code in the cloud that allows you to run actions. We're going to have a whole session about this later today, Mark and I, and we'll tell you more about it is in addition to showing you what's possible with it. So as I mentioned, serverless, I think of it as really a Swiss Army knife for extensibility, really for content and data. So if you need content to get from one format to another, or data to get from one format to another, say from JSON to XML or back, App Builder is a really useful tool to have in your toolbox for doing that. And it is all hosted on Adobe's infrastructure. So really there's nothing for you to manage. You don't have to spin up a server. It's really flexible and pretty fantastic. And now it is included with AEM as a cloud service sites customer. So if you are a new or current customer, you get this for free. So you get 1 unit, and you might be asking, well, what is 1 unit? I know how AEM, I buy AEM, it's through content requests and, how much traffic I'm getting and that sort of thing. So the metric for App Builder, because what we're doing is kind of combining a bunch of features that are make it so that developers don't have to go elsewhere to build really relevant solutions or integrations. You get 6 million gigabyte seconds a year of runtime. You get 24 million custom events. CDN, we give you 10 terabytes. File storage, about 1 terabyte. And then key value stored, 900 request units per second is the metric that they use. And it's all looking at the documentation explains exactly how to use each of those features. But like I said, Mark and I are going to have a whole session about this where we will show what's possible. And then just to point out, one of the demos that Mark showed with the Universal Editor, and I think we're going to show this also this afternoon, or at least we'll talk about it more. Universal Editor is one of the services that you can extend the UI with App Builder. So that's a key use case for folks to leverage App Builder. And fantastic. So I think that is it for me. I don't want to go too much into App Builder, and we've got our whole session this afternoon. So definitely check that out. And let me bring Mark back up on stage here. Hey, man.
Yep. Oh, I've gone blurry. But let's play the next demo.
Sounds good.
Adobe Experience Manager is more extensible than ever before. And when you partner that with App Builder, you can come up with some really imaginative things to really speed up some of the workflows for content producers. So let's have a look at this. You can see some of the examples here across sites, assets, forms, and beyond. But I want to show you some workflows that I've started to enhance. The first one here, back into this content fragment editor, and the key thing here is that we've enabled a preview button. Now, out of the box, it gives you a link that you can define to a destination. But the idea is, how does a content author really understand this structured content and see what it looks like? So one of the examples here is building a destination that is something built in App Builder that consumes that content fragment and goes and previews it. So here, while the app might be simple in the technical capability, for a content author, it's amazing now to be able to see all the different types of content fragment views based on that one source. Now, This is just different layouts, very simple snippets of HTML markup and CSS. But when you start to go and add the variations, I can start to preview how they look, and even the language support very easily allows me to click through and see different things. So this is using App Builder to build that front end experience and bind that in. Now that's one quick example. But when we start to take it a bit further, we can extend the product as well. So again, I'm back in the content fragment editing tool, and this is the out-of-the-box experience for, maybe an address where I've got 4 different fields here. But if you have a quick look at the URL when I go to this different tab, I'm previewing an app that I'm building in real time right now. So it's actually proxying my local host. But I'm building some autocomplete functionality in here. So I can start to put in, the address and start to have that pop up, or, whatever the address is here. So I'll grab that, and it's pre-populating now, or populating the rest of the fields within my content fragment. So that's a very good example of how you could start to extend and reach into different systems to make sure that you're getting the right information and accessing them that way. So another quick example of doing that. So beyond extensions, I'm also thinking about workflow and how we start to use this. And back in the developer console, here you can see I've got a project set up, and I want to fire and define an event. So the idea here is I can actually go in and capture a number of events. Let me just quickly edit this configuration so you see what I've done here. I defined the production environment that I've got and the events that are fired. So there are some out-of-the-box events that get fired when you can see here a content fragment's created, it's modified, etc. And you can, of course, use App Builder to define your own events. But by clicking next, I'll just go through authentication and the name. I can then work out what I'm going to do when one of those events fires. So when a content author, in this case, changes a content fragment, I can then go ahead and define, do I fire up a webhook call, or do I use an action that I've already deployed, in this case to call a message on Slack. So let's actually have a look at that. If I was to change this, maybe I'll add 2 exclamation marks to make sure it's really important. We'll click on save, and you might see the preview come across here, and in just a second we'll get that update happening here. There it is there. So of course then I can link back to that app that I built before and get that nice preview and have a workflow that's been built out very quickly. So you can see now the extension capabilities of Experience Manager, when you partner that with App Builder, unlocks a whole bunch of potential. All right, so let's keep going and talk about assets. And assets has a lot of enhancements that even if you're building sites, you may have to drop in and out of an asset creation workflow. So I want to just talk through some of the enhancements we've made in that area too. Now, the bigger challenge we're solving here is around solving this spaghetti workflow mess that happens across a lot of organizations. I know when I talk to a lot of you, the workflow between marketing and the creative studio team and developers, etc., isn't always cohesive. So we're working to streamline that process and doing a lot of work to stitch a lot of these workflows between the products together. So, for instance, between Frame.io for video production into AM assets with a click of a button. But some other areas I want to really show you now is how we can start to leverage the enhancements in AM assets. So let's have a look at this next demo and see how we can take advantage of some of these new workflows. Let's take a look at some of the innovation with Adobe Experience Manager assets, starting right here in the newly refreshed Assets UI. You can see at a glance, I've got quick access to the files I'm working on, some insights around what me and my team have been doing, task assignment, and different assets that I've been working on. But great integration with the rest of Creative Cloud. Straight away being able to go straight into libraries and see exactly what's happening with shared files. If I hop over to Adobe XD, this is where I'm doing my wireframes, etc. Over on the left-hand side, I have that same library support, and I can bring colors, I can bring logos, etc., out of my mockups into the library and see them alongside everything else here in AM Assets. Now, beyond just library support, being able to work with assets, and this is a task that maybe in the past I would download this asset, open up in Photoshop, and as quick as that is and as integrated it is, we can do even faster now with integration with Adobe Express. You can see here, by clicking a button, I can do something like remove the background, where we take the asset, we use the new quick actions out of Adobe Express, and allow you to do things like remove the background in just a few clicks. I do that, it looks amazing. I can hit apply and save that rendition down as either a new file or a version of the file that I've already got. Now, speaking of Adobe Express, I've started working up this new piece of content, maybe for a social campaign. And again, I've got some text here. I'm going to drag the logo out from the library here and put that in place. But I want some good background content. So again, on the right-hand side, you can see direct integration with Adobe Experience Manager, where I can go and grab this asset of my choice, drag it across here. I'm going to just quickly set it as the background. We might reframe that and move that across. This is starting to look real good. But now I want to save it down. So let's have a look at a couple of things. I love this feature of Express allowing me to go and grab different languages. Let's just go and grab simplified Chinese. Let's say duplicate. So now I have the original and I have the translated version. But what I want to do is save this back into Experience Manager. So I'm just navigating back to the folder of choice, hitting save, and now it's going to allow me to change this. I'm happy with new promo. I'm happy with the format. I'm happy where it's going to go. Let's grab the entire document and say upload. And now it's taking my design and putting it straight back into my folders. So if I come back to Experience Manager, if I go into my assets and into the right project, into campaigns, here is my new promo. Here are my assets, and we'll give them just a second to preview, and they're ready to go. I can drag and drop onto a page or share them with someone else for approval. That's some of the innovation with Adobe Experience Manager assets. All right, and you can see the assets team have been doing quite a number of innovations around different things. So Express, if you haven't seen it yet, it's amazing. It's fully integrated with Adobe Experience Manager assets for video workflows, tying it in with Frame.io. There's 3D support. There's greater integration as far as delivery of assets to help with that performance that we talked about right up the front. And we've given a new coat of paint as far as the UI to make that seamless. So look out for more work from the assets team, but wanted to share that. Now, of course, we don't have time to go through everything, but I wanted to just touch on a few things that you will see later on today. For instance, the forms team have been innovating, especially around headless adaptive forms. We've had headless content for some time, headless commerce over in the commerce team, but the AM forms team have been really thinking about new ways to bring the management of form content out to new channels. So stick around for that session later on today, and you may hear some of the other capabilities as well. And then from a foundational perspective, the team have been working on additional ways to enhance the capabilities of Experience Manager as a cloud service. For instance, things like the new rapid developer environments, where you can spin up a new environment via a command line and deploy code in a matter of minutes, not waiting for 30 minutes or so. And additional things such as WAF support in the product capabilities. So if you haven't looked at Cloud Manager lately, go and have another look and see all the enhancements in there. Now, I think it's time, of course, to talk about the last section. And Ron, I'll bring you back on.
Yep.
What are we looking at here?
Well, that looks like a very colorful eye, but you're going to tell me it's something completely different.
I think it's AI.
Yeah.
Okay, let me off with that bad joke. But let's talk about generative AI.
Excellent.
Yeah. So, Ron, what are you seeing? I mean, you're out talking to a lot of customers, as am I. How are they seeing generative AI? Is it a feature? Is it a transformational? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I think generative AI is it's a tool essentially that allows us to punch above our weight. And that's exactly what I think everyone is looking for. It allows us to, just the stuff that you were showing in Express, fabulous, especially when you add in the generative AI thing, the translation piece.
Yeah.
That is a game changer, especially when you're thinking about content and the demand for content growing. Adobe did a survey years ago where we're like, okay, we're creating all this content as an organization, a marketing organization ourselves. We don't know how to scale. You can't just throw, more people necessarily at this. And I think this, again, it's a fantastic tool, I think, for all of us to be using.
I think it's one of those ways where, if you remember back when mobile first came out, for those of you who have been around for some time like me, but it wasn't just a technology piece. It actually changed the way we actually build UIs and front end, and it changed the architecture, etc. And then, cloud did that as well. So I think we're barely scratching the surface as far as how much of an impact it'll make on the day-to-day work that we do. And, obviously Adobe's thinking about that. But from a business concern, when we talk to business leaders, are you hearing any of these concerns?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think everyone, especially if you watched, at least here in the States, the hearings in Congress where they brought in, folks saying, how is this not going to, an illegal thing or a bad thing to be doing if you're
Yeah.
pulling content from just willy-nilly anywhere. So, yeah, it's definitely a concern.
Yeah, I think the overall summation of that is that there's a lot of concern around risk. Like, how is it going to affect my business? Am I exposing myself? So it's not just technology, but it has some legal impacts as well. If we switch to the Adobe perspective here, AI is not new. I think, Ron, you remember a time when we used to just call it Adobe Magic, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Generative fill in we didn't call it generative fill, we call it content aware fill
Yep.
in Photoshop. But that was like, wow, how did you do that? Now over time we know that's AI, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. So, it's interesting kind of the evolution that we've gone from like machine learning, algorithms, machine learning, and then now into kind of AI. But it's all, foundationally similar in the sense that you're training the machine to create these new versions of content, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And our perspective here is that we're building this into the product. So while AI is a capability, we want to really be where the marketers, the content creators are. And so just as we've done with AI, if you look at, for instance, if Adobe Analytics, we have things like the anomaly detection right in the product. So it just feels like a feature, even though it's a complete shift in technology. And on the CDP side, being able to have propensity models around a certain cohort of users, and being able to share that between like the CDP and the Journey Optimizer tool to do email. Similar with generative AI, right? With Sensei, and being able to think about things like copy creation and having that available as a co-pilot tool. So as I'm in the moment creating that content, I've got Sensei helping me saying, do you want me to remix that and make changes? And of course, Firefly, like Ron, you mentioned this right at the front. You use Firefly almost every day to create, great visual content, right? And
Yeah.
if you're watching this session, you've not heard of Firefly, write down right now. Don't go and do it right now, but
Yeah.
write down as an action. Go and have a look at, the Firefly site and start looking at this. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, like I mentioned, the thing that blew my mind, I think, essentially was the background that we're using for this conference was created basically by giving Firefly an image of our brand. So you'll see in a minute the video when we go into the break, or later in about a half hour, 45 minutes. But that this image was created by giving it our brand image, which had our brand colors and kind of everything that we wanted to kind of keep it looking like. And I said, make some ribbons. and it gave us this. And I was,
Yeah.
yeah, I couldn't, this was like production ready content. So yeah, it's amazing.
It is exciting. And I think, again, this comes back to, just an evolution of how we're starting to think about the use cases. So, again, we've had smart tagging in AEM for quite some time, for rather than having a whole bunch of images that have, a file name like 1234.jpg, actually having metadata that you can search on immediately. And while it's not meant to be, 100% perfect, it allows you to narrow down and find things quickly. Same thing with smart cropping, right? It's finding the key subject matter, the subject of the content, and allowing you to still to go and override it. So the whole idea is it's a co-pilot. It's helping you accelerate your work, but still keeping you in control. And Ron, I think the difference here, if we go back to those concerns, is around the commercially safe piece, right? So,
Yeah.
did you have to get approval to go and use Firefly to build these backgrounds? I'm sure, Adobe has a quite adherent brand standard. So, what's the perspective there?
Okay, now you've just outed me as somebody who didn't go to the brand team and get
You didn't have to, right? You didn't have to go and
yeah.
get approval to say, can I use AI for this?
Honestly, it's been really interesting. Like from the day that we started like the beta internally on Firefly, it was everywhere. Like, I mean, everybody was using it internally for doing all sorts of stuff. And yeah, I think it's amazing having this capability available.
And I think that's where the difference is, that with Firefly, we take the risk away. So first of all, it's trained on all the licensed content that sits in Adobe stock, and you don't have to worry about, do I have rights for this or not? Will someone sue me or not? Because Adobe takes responsibility for that. And when we talk about copy content, etc., the whole idea is the model is being trained on your content based on what you're storing in Experience Manager as an example. So you don't have to worry about the copy being the same as what we're creating for another brand that might be using Experience Manager as well. So exciting things here, things that are coming out. But let's have a look at a few examples here. So I love this. A lot of people saying, is it replacing creativity? Every creative that I work with says, actually, no, it's actually enhancing creativity. So I can look at this image and go, hey, what would it look like if there were some cows there? And rather than going and looking for stock and removing the backgrounds and placing them, trying to get them all right, it just does it for me. So my intent is still the same. I'm still in control, and being able to use that from a creative perspective. I'm sure you're doing this all the time, Ron.
Yeah, no, it's exactly. It's a super huge time saver. Especially for like getting exactly what you're looking for. And if you can't find what you're looking for, this allows you, especially with the generative fill is tremendous to be able to add elements into an image that you already maybe shot or want to use.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what's kind of interesting, without kind of geeking out too much on this, is the fact that it's on layers. It's not just a roll the dice and you
Yeah.
get the final form image. If you
Yeah.
don't like it, build it again. I'm getting still that control over the different layers, etc., and being able to go and impact on that. So that's one example. Let's look at another one, more for a marketer. So I showed Adobe Express before, but in that same tool, being able to call Adobe Firefly to, for instance, create a background. Ron, what's your experience with Express, and have you done anything with Firefly?
Yeah, no, like I said earlier, for the 15-minute break that we have coming up, the whole video is created in Express. I was actually going to use After Effects, which I'm normally used to, but this made it so much easier. You've got
Yeah.
Firefly built in. You can do some pretty fun stuff. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm the same. It's like we always like, it's like gravity. You go to the easiest path, and these
Yeah.
tools are amazing. So and still great results. Let's look at a more copy friendly story here. So this is some of a showcase of some of the work we're doing on Adobe.com, where we're saying, okay, we already have some text. Let's remix it now and think about the different tones. And the whole idea is not to just create some text and copy paste it and publish it. The idea is to say, well, how do we know what's best, right? And so thinking about what we would normally do around A/B testing, but now saying, well, what if there were two versions, or 3 versions or one for a particular audience profile. They're having all of these different variations, and then allowing the data coming back to actually inform the model to say this works, this doesn't work. So it's a very data-driven workflow, but it's right in the tools. The idea is that this is a sneak into what you'll see coming from Adobe in the future. But we want to make it accessible for everyone, not just have a highly trained specialist team on the side. So, Ron, do you see this? Maybe the next Developer Live will have different content, showing up, etc. What's your perspective?
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic use case for creating content. And like you said, it's not, simply create something and then you paste it in and you go. The hardest thing, if you're a content creator, the hardest thing is looking at a blank page.
Yeah.
You kind of know what you want to say, putting that content in there and giving it kind of a little bit of prompt engineering, if you will, then yeah, it giving you options. Again, it's allowing us to do more, and that's fantastic.
Absolutely. And I think the control thing is also important, right? So we're not just saying, hey, just let the AI go crazy.
Yeah.
Full control over approval processes, and that's up to your workflow, right? You can just let it go, or you can say, I want to find, pick and approve every single word for word. That's, again, it's up to your workflow. So I think that's fit for the AI. Any last comments before I hand back to you? What do you think of the innovation we showed so far?
What do I think of the innovation stuff?
Yeah.
I think it's fantastic, man. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, and actually the demo, and I had sent this to you anyways, but I'll say it now. That demo on Express where it gives you the translations, my mind was blown right there because I hadn't actually seen that feature before. So yeah, that was incredible.
Yeah, and I think the summary, what I'm saying is the workflows we've done in the past and not what we need for the next wave, right? So
Yeah.
This is not just about doing what we've done before faster. The expectations are higher, right? And so we need to be thinking about, can I get 10 times the amount of content produced in the same amount of time that I used to produce one version of it? And that's definitely the path. So the call to action for everyone on the call is go and look at, how things are being produced today. And if you can enhance those workflows, extend those workflows, there's actually effort there. And the last thing for me is, we've got great breakout sessions coming up for the rest of the day. Would love to be interactive. So feel free to ask questions, lean in, ask us, challenge things, and let's build experiences together. So
yeah,
with that,
totally. Okay, hold on, Mark. You are not going yet. I need these slides that I had stopped sharing because I forgot that I had this last section. So anyways, so if you can go to the next one. Yeah. So with the Adobe Experience Manager track, you're going to just build it out. Yeah. So you've been experiencing the keynote with Mark and I, and as just to reiterate what Mark just said around, this is an opportunity for everyone who's watching to engage with us and ask questions. We are delighted to help you out, give you any of the information that we have. You could certainly watch the recording, but of what the event we did last week. But the reason we're doing this in the time zone here in APAC is to give you an opportunity to engage and interact with us. So hopefully you'll take that. Okay. So next up, we've got back to front component development and development and deployment with James. And then we've got a 15-minute break then after the break, 2:15 to 2:45, omnichannel content delivery with Anubhav.
Yep.
There we go. And then 2:45, we have automating content workflows with App Builder. Mark and I will be back. Introduction to AEM headless forms will close out that kind of middle section of the day, 3:15 to 3:45. And then we have another 15-minute break. And then that'll bring us to kind of the last part of the day. Introduction to the AEM Universal Editor. James will come back and show us that. A lot of great stuff. Edge Delivery Services Overview. Mark is going to do that from 4:30 to 5. Edge Delivery Services hands-on walkthroughs are on. Is going to do that. It's a longer session, allow you to really get hands-on with the technology. And then Mark will close it out after that session.
Yeah, and if you're looking at this time outside of Australia, obviously this is Australian time.
Oh
so,
yes, I forgot to put that on
3
there.
hours difference if you're in Singapore, as an example, and even further back if you're in India. But again, we wanted to make this in an interactive time zone. So please be vocal, ask us questions.
Absolutely. All right. So we have a few minutes left. Is there a slide? Yeah. So just the commerce track. Essentially, if you are interested in the commerce track, you're welcome to jump between stages. We hope that you'll stay with us on the content track, but Uday and Scott had an overview of the Adobe Commerce roadmap. And then we've got Deliver Commerce Performance Through Platform, the future of commerce, Gen AI and 3D, requirements gathering, best practices, strategies to optimize your commerce site performance. They're doing a deep dive into App Builder. So App Builder is definitely a key component with Adobe Commerce. It actually comes bundled with Adobe Commerce, where you get between 1 and 7 units of the product, depending on how large your investment is into Adobe Commerce. So Jason will talk all about that, and using API Mesh, which is a way to bring together a bunch of different APIs from a bunch of different services into a single, very efficient framework. And then Scott's going to bring some partners in and close it up and do a show and tell session at the end from 5 to 6. All right. So that was the whirlwind. It looks like we've got James is getting ready here with his back to front component development and deployment, getting ready to go. We've got a couple of minutes remaining. Hannah, I'm guessing there were no questions. Oh, actually, I did want to address one. I know in the chat we did start a little bit early. I do apologize for that. In the schedule, it did say there was like a 10-minute kind of welcome, which we just kind of bundled into the overall keynote. So if you missed the beginning of that, the recording, again, it will be available shortly. And the recording of Cedric is actually the one that we did in the US. So that one's available on the Adobe Experience League website. You can look for that.
Ron, it's probably a good time to mention that, yes, there were some great sessions on the North American version of this event that are recorded and available, as these sessions will be recorded. So it's not just about today. There is ongoing content, and we'll make sure the links are available.
Exactly. Outstanding. All right, Mark. So James, you look like you're ready to go, right? You can just shake your head yes. Okay. Well, we do have, so we got like a minute left. I don't want to go too much early, but we'll you have no more slides, right? I just have my up next, and then you go to.
That's it.
That's it. Excellent. There we go. We got the Adobe logo. Fantastic.